But, right, so you can own machine guns, but it has to be a machine gun that was manufactured prior to 1986. And and so what I'm getting at is, I don't want anybody to leave thinking that machine guns are totally illegal, because they're not. They're just some additional things that you have to do in order to make yourself eligible to own machine guns, suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, things called AOW, which are any other weapons, the things like pins or knives that shoot 22. All that stuff is actually legal. There are just some extra things you have to do. I just wanted to let you know that.
So let's go back to accessories, guys. Talk to me a little bit about what we've decided. It doesn't qualify as a firearm, but maybe we're regulating it, or we're banning it nationwide, statewide. What do we know?
So one that he mentioned was like a silencer or a suppressor.
Okay.
It's not illegal, but
Did you give away all my answers before this question?
a couple.
Okay. We'll roll with it then.
So like things like a silencer or suppressor aren't illegal, but they are regulated, and you have to go through a stricter process, and that you have to be deemed eligible to purchase one of these. Like, not everyone can go out and just go purchase it. Everyone's able to, but there's a process you have to go through, so it's just regulated rather than.
Yeah, it takes multiple months to get a suppressor, and you go through a lot of background checks and stuff like that to look in deeper than your just average background check when you buy a handgun.
Okay, we feel like that's good or bad?
I see no problem with that.
Okay.
Don't see a problem.
Okay, so talk to me about some other things. We talked about silencers, we talked about bump stocks are banned, right?
Yes.
What else we got? Maybe in California, they tend to have a lot of extra laws that some
Right.
people don't have.
Well, and like, I think there's 12 states that ban assault weapons in general.
Okay.
So I think it's like Connecticut, New York, California, just kind of like the New England states, maybe out west a little bit. But they limit that, and they limit also like high magazine pistols.
Okay. What is a high magazine?
So say like a Springfield XD holds like 17+1,
Okay.
and like
That's very specific.
That was very specific.
Right there. Okay, carry on. Yeah.
But even like all the packaging is like not legal in California, not legal in California.
Yeah.
So they're very high on their gun control laws out there. So I don't even know what the regulation is for the set for how many you can have in your magazine, but I know it's probably in the single digits, very low.
So why are we limiting that? Why is that a good idea or a bad idea?
They think that if they limit that, they can limit the casualties of you can get so many rounds off, then you got to change your clip. So it takes more time to make more damage instead of kill more people, but more damage.
So if we don't have high capacity magazines, I can't shoot as many people in one set.
That's what they say.
Is that kind of the thought?
Yes.
Hey, we feel like that's a good idea or a bad idea?
I'm not an advocate for that.
Okay.
Because the laws that are put into place for that restrict law-abiding citizens from having these magazines.
Okay.
And criminals are criminals because they don't follow the law, and they're going to find a way around, and they're going to purchase these high-capacity magazines. And the fact that, well, I mean, we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage if we take these weapons out of the hands of citizens, and then the criminals are going to go find a way around it.
Steve, let me ask you a question. If I've got Evans Springfield, what was it?
XD.
XC, that, yeah, whatever that is. If I've got it, and it's got how many?
17+1.
17 plus 1. And I have a high power clip, or I have high volume magazine, right, in it, and I can hold more than that, I'm assuming, or is that the 17?
I mean, you can probably get extended clips, but I think
Okay,
17+1.
all right. I can do more damage with that clip, but I can't do as much damage if I don't have that high capacity clip. Is that right?
You could do it, it's just gonna take more time.
How
Why?
long, I mean, like, so for
Yeah,
an
good.
experienced gun user, like, how long is it gonna take me to change out that magazine?
I mean, it's somehow like readily available in your other magazines.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that I'm coming into school with the intent to do harm, and I've got myself loaded up with a dozen magazines, the non-extended magazines. So, you know, what are your thoughts on that argument, right? Like, so if I come in with the 17 and 1 in the pipe versus having 12 clips on me, and I'm an experienced firearm user, and I've practiced and I've prepared for this, like, I mean, you're talking nanoseconds, right?
Yeah, not very long at all. To change a magazine in a pistol, 3 seconds max. I mean, that's taking your time.
So I guess going back to the argument for the extended magazines, like, sometimes does it come down to a practicality issue?
I think so.
Like, you know, like having the extended clip. I suppose you can make an argument for having that, but then having a suppressor or a silencer. Like, so the gun that I have for home protection, probably don't need a silencer. As a matter of fact, it's probably the last thing I want. I want to scare the burglar off, right?
Exactly.
So just like, so what are your thoughts on that as far as so talking about the accessories that Mr. Robbins is talking about, as it comes to a practicality issue? Like sometimes it's like, what fight, what sword do you want to die on, right? Like what fight do you want to, like you want to protect that Second Amendment, but at the same time, like where are some of the battles that aren't worth fighting as it relates to accessories?
I think as far as going off the high capacity clips, I think California did that to maybe please its citizens. I mean, saying, hey, we're taking action, but in all reality, it's not going to really save that much. But I think it's because their governor's got to get reelected. They're going to want people to, and most of that is a Democratic state, and they're mostly pro-gun control. So they're going to want them to say, hey, he's taking action in the way we want to go. We should probably reelect this person.
So you're saying it's a feel-good thing to get reelected?
I think they want to get reelected, yes, sir.
Could I ask about, the so-called assault weapons ban? And if you all studied the assault weapons ban from '94 to 2004, a really important piece of it in the legislation and the gun control continuum of all the things that have passed by. If you did research that, do you know if it had actually any impact, significant impact on crime?
They did not. I think the crime, as far as, I mean, California had a low crime rate in general, and that was ranging back from even before the assault bans, but I don't think it did have a significant impact on crime rate.
Yeah, it was a national act.
Because if we see from the past 15 years, our gun ownership has gone up and our crime rate has gone down. That's not saying it's a direct correlation, but it's just a good statistic to know.
I think there's plenty of examples of gun laws being put into place that really had no effect on violence. Like in England and Wales, you're not allowed to own a handgun, and in 2018, 40,000 people were stabbed.
Yeah, so you're touching on something that's very important. Is it the instrument that we're discussing because it's gun control? Is it the instrument, or is it the actions of people, what they're doing in society?
It's absolutely the people. I'm a firm believer that we don't have a gun problem, we have a people problem. And whether or not we
Should regulate people.
whether or
People
not-
regulation.
whether or not we eliminate guns, even if we were to eliminate guns completely, crime and murder is still going to happen. So there were, I don't know where it went, but there were, I mean, people were killed, people were stabbed, people are beaten to death with rocks, pipes. I mean, those are things that you can't really, there we go.
Yeah, you can't
So,
ban it. That'll pop.
yeah, 8,000 people were, in 2012, 8,000 people were shot, 1,000 people were stabbed, 518 people were killed by rocks and blunt objects, and 767 people were strangled. So,
767 people were
No,
strangled
this is in the United States.
United States.
in 1 year.
767 people strangled in 2012 with a total of 12,765 deaths a year.
and so even if you were to completely ban guns, even if guns were out of the equation, violence is still going to take place because that's what's just in the heart of some people. And if they have a will to go commit a crime or a will to go kill somebody, they're going to do it.
Regulate hands, it sounds like, to some degree.
Yeah.
And all these gun deaths where he said that the gun deaths were, in 2011, were 11,400. That was how many gun deaths. But of those 11,400, 74% of those were gang-related shootouts. So it's not really your law-abiding citizens or your everyday. A lot of these gangs probably are obtaining their guns legally anyways.
This is just more of out of morbid curiosity. The 500 plus killings from rocks, what were they mostly associated to? That just sounds like a bizarre stuff.
I just looked up the causes for death.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can ban guns and everything, but, I mean, like you said, listen to that Alex Morgan, and I mean, Piers Morgan.
Alex Jones?
Yeah, and you can't ban them. You can't ban the lead pipe, is what he was saying. So, you're always going to have access to, if you really want to hurt somebody, you can do it.
Going back a little bit to mass shootings, we hear the stories about the bad ones. Is there any stories at all of ones where there's people that actually had like a concealed carry or a gun and protected, and why don't we hear about those?
I mean, it's the media outlet, like they want to portray, you don't hear about those because that's basically advocating for pro-gun, for like, pro-concealed carry, stuff like that. They don't want you, they don't really want to publicize it because a lot of these news media outlets want to publicize we should have gun control and all this stuff, and that's just everything against why we should have gun control.
Now, along with that though, is, did it really help in those situations? Having somebody have a gun there, did it really help that situation compared to another mass shooting? Or did that person, were they able to kill just about as many people as a regular mass shooting did without any guns? Do you guys have any research on that?
We don't know how many like lives it did save. No.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with the mass shooting thing you're talking about, but there's been plenty of examples of, say, like gas station robberies that have been stopped by somebody carrying a gun, whether it be somebody in the store, the gas station clerk. But there's been a lot of crime that's been stopped by someone lawfully carrying a weapon that the media doesn't cover, because the media tends to skew things as to advocate for gun control. And when something happens that shows guns in a positive light, that a law-abiding citizen used a gun for good, and they're not going to broadcast that as much as they would something that happened negative.
Should we be worried at all then that the right to bear arms may eventually be eliminated because the media is skewing it this way?
I mean, I think that's their intent. I think the intent of the media and the intent of a lot of people is to eliminate the Second Amendment and to take our right to bear arms away from us. And that's something that I feel like people always need to stay educated on, because if they go just by the media and they let the media dictate how they view things and how they view society, then their view is going to be skewed to one side, and they're not going to see both sides of the argument. And they're going to, I just feel like if people only get their information from the media, they're going to be very one-sided, and they're not going to see both sides of the argument. And so I think people need to educate themselves and keep this topic like important and relevant in society, because I feel like it's a very important right that we have, and if this right's taken away from us, it's going to be catastrophic.
Talked a little bit about the differences in America and the way we view firearms, and purchase, sell, ownership, and some internationally. I think you talked about Britain. In Britain, you're not allowed to carry a gun. I do believe there's been some mass shootings there, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about South America. I think in Venezuela, I think there was some gun stuff that came up maybe a year or two ago. Are you guys familiar with what happened in Venezuela as far as gun control goes?
Were they just taking the gun?
I believe so. Am I correct on this? Venezuela, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
They started
I'm not sure
confiscating.
about this one.
Yeah.
Confiscating guns. They made it illegal for you to own guns. Saved by the bell. All right, we'll write it off.